right. Good evening, Facebookers, YouTubers, Instagrammers, and everybody else that's tuned in. You're listening to the Intimacy Chronicles. We've been gone for a few weeks.
Yes, we have. Welcome back. Good to be back in the saddle, huh?
Yeah, I miss you guys, and it's kind of, for me, just kind of getting back into the swing of things with everything going on. But glad to be here. To the left with that deep voice. Good
evening, everybody. It's your boy Rich, also known as the Quiet Storm, as they call me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just good to be back. I'm glad everybody's safe and doing well, and it's good to see you guys again.
Yeah, it really is. I miss when we're not doing it, because that's our time to fellowship, and I enjoy that. So, the man in charge.
Oh yeah, man in charge today.
I don't even know who he is.
He is myself. Okay, y'all, they gave me the keys to the car, so let's see. So today what we're going to do, we decided to switch it up a little bit. I'll be your host. My guest today is none other than the queen herself, Miss Jackie.
It is me.
Yeah, we're going to, she's, I think it's a great thing where she's going to answer questions that might be on her mind. She's going to also do some testimony and some talk. We're just going to sit here and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And catch up on all the things, because there's so much went on this year. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at from 12 calendar months last fall to this fall, so much has gone on, and I feel as though we haven't gotten a chance to sort of catch up.
And it's true.
And do a recap and reflect. So tonight will be an opportunity for us to do that as well.
So I'm excited for a couple of different reasons. But when I think of Quiet Storm, I remember when we started doing this show, and I think he thought that he would just be playing the steel drum.
That's another show in itself. Those who have don't know, we've been doing this for 3 years now.
Yeah.
And I used to kind of sit in the corner away from my cue, and I played during commercial breaks. And then slowly, like, Jackie kept soliciting, pulling me in. It's like what Tony Montana say. I tried to leave, but they keep bringing me back.
I kept pulling them back.
Yeah, and next thing you know, she gave me a seat at the table, and the rest is hysterical, I guess.
But it's funny, because I remember sometimes I would say, "Well, Rich, what do you think?" and he would turn around like I'm talking to somebody else.
Yeah, I must admit, the first time she turned around and said, "Rich, what do you think?" I'm like, "Me?"
Right.
And it gave me an outlet to honestly give my opinion, and when my first thoughts on certain things about relationships and some of the things that she was talking on the show, because most of the times. Oftentimes you would ask my opinion and we had guests.
Yeah.
So it would take me aback, but I guess you respected my opinion. Sometimes we agreed, sometimes we didn't agree. But there was always that respect. So I enjoyed the opportunity, and I enjoyed the experience.
Yeah. I always feel like you were such a great addition, because you were always that guy that, okay, let's look at it from a different perspective. And even sometimes I'd be like, oh boy, here he goes with this devil's advocate bullshit.
I'm just saying.
And so, but when I think back, I know you always say it's hard telling me no, but I think that sometimes people can see things in you that you're not used to seeing in yourself.
Of course.
Yeah. You have a great radio voice.
Yeah, I've been told that, but it's not only that. It's just a situation where I learned a lot from watching you guys.
Yeah.
And the way you, I think one good thing about this show and all of the guests here, former guests, would be able to say is the fact that they enjoy their experience and they felt comfortable. And oftentimes they share things was personal.
Absolutely.
And we asked some hard questions. And,
yes.
But the atmosphere here was always a situation where they felt comfortable to share.
And I think that's always what I want. I want people to come here and just feel like you're sitting on your living room couch having a conversation.
In front of hundreds of people.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not under pressure. I mean, just go with the flow of things.
Right.
I appreciate each and every guest that we had. I learned something from all of them. I think about past interviews, and I'm just excited that people trust us enough to want to share their story.
Well, who were some of your memorable, your favorite? I wouldn't say favorite. Because
I'm not going to say favorite.
That's like choosing kids. But give me one of your memorable ones that you could think off the top of your head.
Well, Marvin, because as much as I thought I knew about boxing, I learned so much more.
Yeah, he was. I think he was. He resonated with me because it was, like you said, we learned so much, and not only that, it's the history of local Baltimore boxing.
Exactly,
and that man was such a wealth of knowledge, just talking about boxing. But then his community, things that he was doing in the community, and every time I see him somewhere, whether it's on TV. And or if I see him in an article, like one time he did a thing on TV.
He did,
and most recent, and I was with my kids. I said, "Hey, I interviewed that guy."
Yeah,
and
it's pretty cool. He's like Baltimore boxing royalty, and he's coming back soon.
Okay.
Yeah, because I talked to him a couple of weeks ago. We always have a great conversation. But I'm hoping to get him and his wife.
Do you remember your first interview?
My first interview was with a swinging couple.
Mm-hmm. The very first interview.
And I got to give a little background on that. Like, once I went to that station, I had 2 co-hosts because I started out in Echo.
Okay.
And then I was like, let me send this out to a couple of stations to see if we could somebody would, let us do a show there. And so I got feedback, but when I decided to move forward, my 2 co-hosts backed out probably like a couple of days before the show.
Why? Okay.
Because I think they wanted to stay in the restaurant.
Gotcha.
Where I wanted to grow. I wanted to just try my hand at different things. And so I actually got Mark to be my co-host, and he never works in front. He's always behind the scenes.
Okay.
And I remember we talked for about 45 minutes, and I was like, well, I could do it by myself, but since we're having this great conversation, why don't you be my co-host until I find someone else? And kind of like the rest is history, and later I added on Nate.
Nate.
Yeah.
Dr. Love.
Dr. Love. And he brought comedy to the table.
Gotcha.
So I feel like each of us brought something different to the table. And sometimes when the conversation got too heavy, you can always count on him to crack a joke or two.
Yeah, or ask about teabagging.
Which that was his obsession.
Yeah, that was his go-to.
Exactly. But the thing with Mark, I always felt like we were like sparring partners because we never really agreed.
Yeah.
And I felt like a lot of times his ideas was, I called him Jim Crow. Because he was so outdated. And I kept saying, how can somebody your age still have that mindset in today's society?
It's interesting. Yeah, I remember some of his views were kind of out there, but again, it was it was a forum.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where we can agree to disagree, no matter how outlandish the concept is. We were able to vibe.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So when I did the swinger show, I kept saying my first show has to be something like exciting.
It can't get more
something
exciting
different.
than that.
Yeah, and I learned a lot because when you think of swinging, it's so much more than what you think it is. You know,
Really?
There's a society of swingers.
Yeah, but what did you learn from a swinging couple?
Here's what I learned. So I know that they don't open. Okay, so you're a swinger, but it's not that you just pick somebody. Hey, we're going to sleep with that. Mm-hmm. They move within their circle.
Okay,
you know what I mean. And so the husband and wife have a discussion. So because my question was, is this for the length of your marriage? Is this something that you would continue to do? Mm-hmm. The answer. He said, oh, yeah. But of course he will say, oh, yes, because he's the one reaping the biggest benefits. And what I mean by that is he wasn't open-minded enough to allow another man to come in there.
Okay. So was that a true swinging situation?
For their situation, because she was bisexual.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But for others, it's what I found a lot of times with couples that swing. Most of the time, the men are open with another man coming in there. He just can't backdoor him. You know what I
mean? Interesting. Okay.
So it's a lot to it.
See, but I always thought swinging when you had one couple switch off.
Yeah.
And with another couple, not necessarily a threesome or orgy or something like that. I just thought it was just a situation where, okay, let's swap wives, let's swap spouses, or swap significant others, and then you go back home and you wash, rinse, and repeat.
The same water. Well, I think the traditional sense of swinging, I think that it is like a couple swap,
right.
But I think there are levels to it in a sense where, in their case, they both equally enjoyed women.
Okay.
Yeah. But the interesting thing, because I know couples that have been doing this for 20 years plus, but then in her case, she didn't want to do this for the rest of the relationship.
Gotcha.
But he was so caught up into it, I think he never realized that this wasn't something that she wanted to do for eternity.
Okay. So let's move off of swinging,
because you're getting excited.
What's that website again? Do you remember a time where you had where you might have lost control of the guest, or the guest was so? Let's say you had a whole, because I remember times you had a whole cast of play casting.
Yeah,
you had comedians on here. We had multiple people. Have you ever had a chance? You ever a situation where you kind of lost control and you were like? You just like Jesus, take the wheel,
hands up
and let them roll.
I'm not gonna say I lost control, but I learned to fall back when people just want to dominate the conversation.
Okay.
And we had.
So you would be able to be submissive.
I can let you talk because, and let me explain. If I invite you on, you have a story to share.
Right.
So I can't make it about me, even though I like to get a word in from time to time. I let that particular person go ahead and run with it.
Okay, so like what they would say is driven by the guest.
Yeah.
Or the
yeah.
feedback you get. Okay. So was there a time where you just let them? You remember who you interviewed? Can you think of a time?
Yeah. The short. What's his name? He did the book. You know what I'm talking about, Nick, Doctor. Yeah. I let him do the talking.
Okay.
Yeah, it probably, and I remember Will saying that was my cleanest show. And it probably was. Because we never once talked about anything intimate. Mm-hmm. And he had a book. He was in a magazine. And so it was his time. So I know how to like step aside and just let it rip.
But you start off with swingers. You had politicians. you had authors. You had directors. You had playwrights in here.
Yeah.
You had philanthropists. Mm-hmm. You had community activists. You had it all.
Yeah.
So the show is called Intimacy Chronicles. We always say that, but the people that you have on here are so diverse.
They're so diverse because I want people to understand that we're more than just the Intimacy Chronicles. And even with that word intimacy, when I have a guest on, we are intimate with that guest in terms of connecting through conversation.
Gotcha.
So we don't just have to talk about the swingers or other alternate lifestyles. Intimacy could be about finances. I had Donna and Cecil on here, and they talked a lot about...
Very informative, yeah.
Yeah, so there are different types of intimacy. So for them, they were discussing... To me, I felt like that was more about financial intimacy. So it's just to give people a bigger scope of things that we're able to do. Now, don't get me wrong. Intimacy, sex, physical intimacy and the mental connection and sex and all of that. I love that, but we have a responsibility to share more than just that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good point. So can we talk about you?
Sure.
Okay. What would you say the biggest myth or perception about you that's not correct?
It's so many.
Well, give me the biggest one.
I'm going to give you I think the biggest
Most
one, I really think probably because of what I talk about, I think that people might think I'm a nymphomaniac or something.
Okay.
I'm serious. And what the reason I say this is because my brothers get all kind of comments and stuff like Jackie Wild, this, that, and the other. That's so far from it. I think for me, the biggest thing is having an open mind to be able to have an open discussion about the things that are important to me. Am I nasty? Probably 98% of the time.
Okay.
Yeah. But it comes from a different place. It's not just sex. Is more educational because I feel like our community falls short on understanding true intimacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jackie ain't out there wilding out.
No.
She'll wild out with that one person.
Yeah. Well, that shit ain't even happening right now. So. But anyway.
So what do you think? I know there's I've seen times where you kind of you mentored people.
Yeah.
Along the way. I want you to think about somebody right now without naming names.
Okay.
Think about somebody right now who is a younger version of you. Okay. And what advice would you give that person?
For a younger version of me, I would definitely say be open to listen.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because none of us know everything. And if I've been where you are and I'm giving you advice, please don't take it in the way that I'm telling you what to do. Offering suggestions so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. Okay. I'm offering suggestions so that you can do as many things as you want, but you have to commit to one and build on it.
Okay.
So I would definitely say be open to listen because there were times when I wasn't and it cost me.
Okay. So you're talking about a younger version of you.
Yeah.
Were you that person that listened to advice at times?
It took me a while, and the reason it took me a while because when I was giving advice, a lot of times in my younger day, I wasn't comfortable with me.
Okay.
And so I was defensive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about advice? Let's say you're passionate about something, and because I know I've seen situations where people told you not to do something or not to go in a particular direction, and you still forge forward.
Yeah.
So is it just about listening to advice, taking advice, or what is it? What's the difference?
It's listening with an open ear.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's always key. I think that when people are advising you, a lot of times it's to help you.
Okay.
But you can't be defensive about it. Now, there are times for me, because I've done a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people probably look at me like I'm kind of crazy, but it's not that. I have a vision.
Gotcha.
And it's hard for me to get you to see my vision if you're not even open to listen.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times that's what it comes down to. If somebody said, hey, you shouldn't do this, and I'm going to think about what they said, why they're saying. If it's a matter of timing is probably not right, I'm really going to think about that, because at this stage, I don't want to jump out there on a whim.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got the wise Jackie, who's seen a lot, been through a lot right now. Think about the 21-year-old Jackie.
Okay. Oh, she was off the chain.
Off the chain, right.
She was off the chain with a bad attitude, wanted to fight all the time. I felt like a lot of times no one could tell me what to do.
Okay.
Yeah, so rebellious.
So you wasn't listening anyway?
I wasn't listening then until probably I had my son. I think I kind of chilled a little bit, but still had that rebellious nature. But someone else was dependent on me, so I kind of had to step back.
Okay. Any regrets?
If I think back to certain things, I'm not going to say that I have regrets. What I will say is there were times where I could have handled things different.
Okay.
But I've pretty much been able to do the one thing. Now I'm going to take that back. So years ago, I was asked to go into politics.
Okay.
The reason I was asked that was because at that time I worked for the insurance administration, and the commissioner at that time, we bumped heads. So the thing, I really am about rules, right?
Right.
So if you tell me that I'm not allowed to do something, what I want you to do, show me in this book of laws here why or where it says that I can't do something. When it laws, policy, I want to know where it's at. You know what I mean?
So you wanted you trusted, but you validated. You needed
exactly.
Okay.
And so, long story short, I had at that time, I think it was I had Senator Trotter and Delegate Exum come down to speak on my behalf. Mm-hmm. Well, Delegate Exum said, "I want to arrange a meeting with you and the commissioner." Now, you know when you done piss somebody off to the point when they say, "I don't even want to look at her."
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm that kind of person. You know, if you say I can't do something, I want you to show me where it's written, and then we can talk about it. But don't say that I can't, and you can't even show me where.
Okay. In your travels, has that helped you?
It did.
Or hindered some of your progress?
I think it helps because I have to know.
Okay.
You know, even with me, if I tell somebody something, you can well believe I've done my research on it, because I'm not going to give out improper information. So I'm always like, information is key. You got to know what you're talking about. So in that case, you know, he asked, you should think about going into politics. And my answer was, hell no, because I'd probably be in somebody's trunk because of this mouth.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, we had somebody on the debate yesterday who take that same approach, and he made it to the highest office in the land. But that's another story.
When I think about that, I say, God damn, I could have been in that chair.
Yeah, I know, because I don't know. I think he's more petty than you.
Yeah, he is a lot. I mean, and I don't say that often, but yeah, he really is. Okay. Yeah.
All right, so we still talking about the Jackie that's 20 years old.
Yeah, that's
in her 20s. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is probably what, 1992.
Yeah, let's go with that. I knew I liked him. That boy good.
That boy good. So it's kind of introspective question. So Jackie at 20 years old, 21. I think around 21, you had your first boyfriend, real boyfriend. Do I recall? Did I hit that right? Second boyfriend. Okay. Yeah. So you're young in love, and you're experiencing, but you're not that experienced with love. What do you wish you would have known back then about relationships and men that you know now?
I think I wish that I was like comfortable with myself. I think at that time I was insecure, so I probably was a bit more angry. I remember my boyfriend before the second, he was my first. And I didn't know anything. I felt like I should have waited. So I lost my virginity at 19. Yeah, it was 19. But I didn't know anything, and perhaps had I been a bit more comfortable in my skin, he probably definitely wouldn't have got the cookies.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I think what I learned from that experience is that what I have is valuable, and not to just be giving it to any Tom, Dick, and Hank.
So you succumbed to the pressure.
I won't say that I was horny as hell. I mean,
okay. So you wanted it as much as he did.
I was watching porn. I mean, really, since I was 9 years old. Okay. So to actually be able to get some and think about it, well, the shit wasn't all it was cracked up to be, because it was my first and it was uncomfortable.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because it's like, because in a situation like that, okay, you were horny, you wanted him just as much as him, and so you knew what to do, or you knew what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah. But it wasn't a good experience. It wasn't. It wasn't the same. So what would you know? What would you think you would have known about love, life, and relationships and men?
I think the moment, if I had known, more about love and just connecting with someone, I think maybe the experience would have been a lot better. Yeah. I say that because my second relationship, I had started to grow and kind of be more comfortable with who I was becoming. So I enjoyed the experience more so.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So what advice would you give to like a young sister, like who's following that same path, like who's contemplating sex, or what would you tell them? Would you tell them to wait or watch porn?
I would definitely say you can watch porn to get moves, but that's not what I was watching. But that's a different show. I would definitely say wait, because what you have is precious, and you have to know that you have to value it. You have to value it more than the person you're willing to share it with, because I think if you value it more, I don't think you would be so eager to just give it up to the first person that says, I love you. Yeah.
It's tough because, like I said, I'm raising teenage daughters, and sometimes I have to kind of put things in perspective. Like if this event doesn't happen, this party, this situation, this social thing doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world.
Right, exactly.
But they don't understand that, so that's a struggle in itself. So let's talk about let's talk about this year. Okay, last fall to now, it's a lot of stuff went on in your life. What would you say one of the biggest successes in the last 12 months for you?
I would have to go back to September.
Last September. Okay.
The reason being, I know I heard that today, but first I would just say never would I have imagined that I would be in LA receiving an award.
Yeah.
And not just getting an award, but the room of people that I was able to connect with doing major shit in the world.
Well, I know I said 12 months, but what about 6 months prior to that? You were in New York.
I was in New York, yeah.
Right.
And that was another thing. I mean, to be able to be in New York and have the celebrity experience.
Okay.
From a car picking you up at a hotel to take you to the interview to dine out in the evening. I think that was amazing. And to be interviewed in the middle of Times Square.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Seeing your name up in lights on the Hard Rock Cafe billboard. I just never would have dreamed that something like that would happen.
Yeah. Have you ever been to LA?
That was my second time in LA. Okay. I went on The Price is Right a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was within the last 12 months. That was one of your successes. What would you consider a not a failure, but one of your down on the other end of the spectrum within the last 12 months?
On the other end of the spectrum, it's funny because while professional life was thriving, personal life was falling apart.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And to be somewhere and you're receiving a prestigious honor, but also knowing that when you go back home, there's a lot of uncertainty.
Okay.
You know, like, where am I going to stay? But being in a room of people and you're fellowshipping and nobody knows, you're walking up on that stage and you're smiling and you're having a good time, but the knowledge of knowing that when this is over, where am I going?
Yeah. Were you going back to that experience? It's like, how do you get through that experience knowing what you know? Is it a situation where you compartmentalize it, or it was something that made the situation bittersweet, or it was how did you manage your emotions, because you're talking about two ends of the spectrum?
Yeah, and I remember I kept thinking I wasn't going to go, and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and I remember the night before my flight, I said, God, if it's meant for me to go, give me a sign. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'm not normally that person, but because I had all this stuff that I was dealing with, I was going to talk myself out of it, even though my ticket was already paid for, courtesy of my big sister. But that morning when I got up, which was like 4:45, I had a text from my younger brother saying, go dazzle the fuck out of those white people. You know what I mean? My sister said, show them why you're the queen.
Wow.
Yeah. I said, well, I only asked for one sign, but I appreciate the two signs. And then later my other brother was like, well, go ahead and do what you do. So I was grateful, and I felt like, while I only asked for one sign, I just felt like, you know, the universe was saying, this is your time. No matter what you have going on, this is your time. So you have to put the rest of that stuff aside, because not going isn't going to change what's coming down the pipe. So when I was at the airport, I was talking to a lot of people, just general conversation. And then when I arrived there and I saw my friend that I met in New York, and she was so happy to see me. When I walked into Hollywood Roosevelt, you know what I said? I'm supposed to be here. To hell with the other shit going on. In this moment,
right,
I'm supposed to be here. So I didn't think about anything that I had going on, because this was my time. And I could deal with that once I'm back in town. But Was it difficult? I mean, I had moments where I was like, what the hell am I going back home to? Mm-hmm. But then it was overshadowed by everything that was happening. You know, my friend Joy knew, she was the only one there that knew what was going on.
Okay.
And I remember her saying, how are you even handling this?
Right.
I said, if I focus on the negative, I'm not going to be able to enjoy this moment.
Okay. So you were able to enjoy
the
moment, and and even though stuff was hanging over your head, you were able to experience and be in the moment.
And be in the moment. Okay. But I had moments, I mean, like I said, I think that when you're in that moment, you always wonder how you would react. Mm-hmm. But I think you just have to, you just got to be in that moment and just let shit fall where it may. You know what I mean? Because if you don't, you miss out on one of the greatest opportunities because you're so busy focusing on all of the other shit you got going on. And I think that you don't reap the benefits of the moment. You know what I mean? Like, to be there and, like, I'm in the room where the Oscars used to take place. Oh, I should know better. So I think for me, I was caught up in that. You know what I mean? Like, okay. I'm walking up on this stage where old Hollywood royalty have come.
Right. The Roosevelt Hotel, which is very historic on Sunset Strip, right?
Right, exactly. Yes. So to me, I felt like I'm surrounded by these pictures of old Hollywood. I'm in this room. Everything that I attended there was red carpet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was no reason to be sad.
So no regrets.
No.
It was a beautiful experience. I heard you mention along your journey your family. Mm-hmm. And I know how close y'all are, tight y'all are. Mm-hmm. Who are some of the other people that helped you on your journey throughout your life so far?
I would say, so my mom died when she was 46. I think I was probably 25 or something like that. What I learned from my mom and my grandmothers was stepping out on faith. And they said that all the time. And it used to get on my nerves because I just wanted more advice. I don't want to hear that. I want something. I felt like I wanted something solid, but for them, faith was solid.
Okay.
You know what I mean? My dad.
You wanted to validate and verify. And
right.
See.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
Okay. I see what making you tick now. Okay.
So my dad, on the other hand, he was that go-getter. Like, whatever it is you want to do, don't let anybody stop you. I don't care if you've had 100 jobs. If it's not for you, keep it moving and find what it is that you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. So I used to have a lot of these ideas and like, Dad, what you think about? And he always give me the brutal truth.
Okay.
And so even now, and I think I'm like that a lot of times. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm just going to be upfront. But having that support from my parents, I always think about, because they're not here, like, gosh, I wish they were here to see all of this. Mm-hmm. My siblings have always been supportive. They always thought I was the wild child because I always did things that they probably would never consider doing. Even when I think about like different cousins and friends, I'll tell you an interesting fact. I'm a big fan of Al Green, Patti LaBelle, and Gladys, right?
Okay.
Al Al Green, the reason I love Al Green so much is because of he struggled with both worlds. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
But he still made great music. But when he became comfortable enough to, I'm not going to say choose a side, but one of his interviews he said he had to convict the Al Green persona because it was just about his ego. And in order to become who he was meant to be, he had to convict the Al Green persona. And I thought about that on so many levels. The reason being, because I think that if we put ego in front of everything, we're never going to reach our fullest potential. And I say that because you can't make it just about you. You have a responsibility to serve, no matter what role you're in. Mm-hmm. So when I started thinking about that, it made me take a deeper look within. And when I think about it in terms of me, even with relationships, I think that sometimes sacrifices have to be made, hard sacrifices. I think when, and it's not to minimize a person's value, it's more so accepting yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some people argue, that some of the most successful people, some of the great, whether it's athletes or TV personalities or great people in general, the ego is what drives them to excel and to take it to that next level. What would you say with people who would say that? Do you think there's a balance, or even like in a situation with a relationship? Yeah, we do have to compromise, but to what level? Do you lose your sense of self, or you make it about you, which is egotistical in a sense?
It is. And I have to go back to, if I think about ego and thinking of Michael Jordan, I have such great admiration for him. I guess people could argue he had a big ego. But just as much as he wanted it for himself, he wanted it for his team. And I think that's why he was so hard on them, because perhaps he saw something in them that they didn't see in themselves.
Okay.
So I think ego plays a factor. And even if I think in terms of doing this show, I'm not successful if I'm not helping you be successful.
Okay.
I think I'm always, I guess people, I could say that I have a knack for bringing things out of people that they didn't know they had within.
Just out of curiosity, do you know what your love language is? What's your primary?
I don't think I have one right now, but
we'll do that exercise another time so we can see. Because
I'm
curious
often
to know.
thought about that.
I'm curious to know. Like mine is acts of service.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm primary. I'm always I feel joy in doing things without seeking nothing in return.
Right. Yeah.
But we'll that's another exercise.
Yeah, because
we'll
I
do that
think
another time.
It's not the same all the time for me.
So let me ask you this: when do situations become too much to handle? Where you think of a situation where you just say, "Look, that's enough." Where is your breaking point? Where you tried, where you loved, or you persevered, and you say, "You know what? I'm gonna have to give up." When do you say when?
So, if I have to, when I think in terms of a relationship, for me to be happy in a relationship, I have to have emotional support.
Okay.
You know?
Understandable.
Yeah. If I'm not getting that, I begin to feel like I'm drowning. I don't want to be the lead all the time. You know, I want the partnership, I don't want it to be where I'm always looked to for answers because there's two of us.
Okay. But do you want somebody to always lead, or is it more of a partnership, or where's the balance? What are you looking at?
I can be comfortable if my partner leads.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with me, and I know my role. I do believe in the partnership, but in terms of making a decision, I think that we both play a role in it because it affects both of us.
And someone will probably argue that's another the myths, because it's like the persona that we see is the type A, alpha female, always getting stuff done. But it's interesting to know that you are comfortable as a rib, what they would say.
Yeah, I know my role. My role is to be supportive. I can lead because I think that sometimes where I might fall short, that partner should come and pick up the pieces. Okay. I don't want to be the alpha female.
Okay. So in a situation like that where you are the alpha female, is that a situation where you would say too much is too much, and you would that's a deal breaker?
Not for me. Over time, to be that person for a very long time, I begin to feel like I'm really drowning, like I'm in it alone.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't like that. I feel like it's not a healthy relationship for me.
Okay.
Yeah. And coming up, my mom was the stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. And so she took care of everything. My dad bring the check home, put it on the table. And she was fine with that. That was probably that era.
Right.
I'm not that person. I can do it. I'm okay with doing it. But at some point, because that's one of the things that I respected about their relationship, they discussed finances. I think that for the relationship to continue to be successful, you have to have a discussion about it. Mm-hmm. It can't be whatever you say is fine. No, we got to have an open dialogue.
Mm-hmm. And and you're right. It's a situation where your dad he was a bread earner, but your mom was the manager. So everyone has their different roles. So like in situations like, so let's say a situation like that where it's emotionally draining you and you're not getting your needs met, and supportive. How do you pull yourself up and still be an inspiration to others?
Because
what drives you?
I think for me, what really drives me is having an impact on somebody else's life. What I'm dealing with on the personal level, to me, I feel like that's separate. That's separate from me trying to help someone else. And the reason I say that is because, let's say somebody came to me for a relationship advice. I'm not bitter about what's going on or what's happened in my relationship, so I can be open-minded.
You can compartmentalize
Yeah.
it? Wow, that's deep.
And the reason being, because this isn't the person seeking help. What I got going over here isn't their problem.
And you can give unbiased.
That's why I say without being bitter.
Okay.
But I think that comes from time.
Gotcha.
and being comfortable, because you and I have had many conversations, and I'm honest about playing a role in the demise of the relationship.
Okay.
Yeah, I know my role in it.
Gotcha.
And I own it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that I don't get sad or, anything like that. Yeah, I have days where I'm just I feel like Wanda from Good Times.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I think that when you've been in something long term, you're sad. It doesn't mean that because you and the person are not together that you don't care. Mm-hmm. You still care.
Yes.
But when you're helping others, you cannot bring your bitterness or your anger into it, because I think when you do that, you're not doing the other party a favor. You're doing them a disservice. That's kind of like how I always look at it, and then I would feel guilty for that.
Before we meet again, we're gonna take this love languages, and because it sounds, I'm almost guaranteed
that I'm a server.
Yeah, acts of service. There's different thing. Quality time.
Yeah.
There's a different. I think it's 50 questions, and I'm curious to know.
I think it's been a long time since I did that, though. I haven't done it.
But it's. I mean, we all evolve, but
yeah,
it's been a long time for me and as well. So I'm hearing. You spoke about your mom. You spoke about your dad. You spoke about some of the life lessons that they gave you. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like it kind of molded you into the person that you are today. Here's my question: if you could talk to someone that you know personally, past or present, mm-hmm. for 15 minutes, who would it be, and what would you ask them about, and what would y'all talk about?
I would have to say my mom.
Your mom.
Yeah.
And you said your mom died at 48?
46.
46 years old. It was really young.
It's very young, yeah. And I had so many unanswered questions. Mm-hmm. The thing that I learned when she died, though, was when you experience a close death, there's a lot of knowledge in that experience.
Mm-hmm. How so?
Everything she's ever told me, I could see it. You know what I mean? Like, I bucked the system so much, but during that time, it was like I was going through a growing phase. Everything that she told me, I could really see it. Even about people that was in my life, different lessons about finances and things. It put a lot of stuff in perspective. But also at that time, I think that I spiraled probably a bit because I lost one of the people I was the closest to. Mm-hmm. So I will have a lot of questions about parenting.
Now, there's always people in your life that you lose along the way that that you can't imagine life without. Was that your first time? Would you say your mom was the first person in your life at that time? Or was there someone else that you...
Yeah, my uncle.
Okay.
My uncle was, because him and I was close. I never looked at him as my uncle. I looked at him more as my big brother.
Okay. So you talked about your mom as someone from your past that you would like to sit down and talk to because of some unanswered question. Would you like to share one of your unanswered questions, what you would ask your mom?
Yeah, I'd want to know.
What she think about Instagram?
No. Now, let me just give you a backdrop on my relationship with my mom. My mom was so conservative. I think they both used to look at me like, where did we get her from?
Okay.
And so a lot of my questions, not just parental, but in terms of relationships, and because they were married a long time, and for me, my main question would have been, what was the secret? How did they make it work?
Your mom and dad?
Yeah.
What was the secret?
What was the secret?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was different for them. I think
because your dad wasn't easy.
He wasn't easy. I mean,
Okay.
and think we were a household full of cancers with the exception of my two brothers, and we probably, it was a moody household. But my mom, to me, was always the same. She was even-tempered. Unless you really have to do a lot to get on her nerves. So it didn't, for me, I was always on her nerves.
Yeah. So your main question is how, as far as your main question for your mom is relationship.
Yeah.
How did you guys, you and my dad, make it work through
Yeah.
thick and thin, through better or worse? What made y'all persevere?
Yeah, I definitely would want to know that. And I know that they've had a lot of ups and downs, but they were able to work through it. And at one point, they did separate and divorce one another. But I never remember a time when my dad wasn't there. You know what I mean? So I always y'all was still unofficially together. So at 19, I saw them remarry each other.
Right.
And, I would have questions like, why did you separate in the first place? And that kind of thing. My dad, I was able to ask him his part in it. And his thing is he needed time to grow up, which I thought was a really honest answer.
So it probably was the reason to separate probably was your mom's decision.
Yeah. Yeah, she probably got tired of the panty chasing.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you the same question. If you could talk to someone, past or present, in history, from Jesus to Michelle Obama, who would you want to talk to? Who would you want to interview?
Dr. Ruth.
Dr. Ruth.
Yeah.
Dr. Ruth.
Yeah.
Who can't even say the word penis. She said, penis? Okay, I remember Dr. Ruth. Dr. Ruth, for y'all millennials out there, she was the OG sex therapist that used to have talk shows and stuff, and it wasn't like she was a sexy person. She was an older woman who knew everything there was to know about sex.
Yeah.
Interesting. And what would you ask Dr. Ruth?
She's the reason that I became so interested in intimacy.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
she is the reason. I was reading her books and things, and most of my friends had no idea who she was. And you have to realize she was very candid.
Yes, she was.
Yeah.
It was
at
almost
a time.
it was almost comedic, and
Yeah.
and I think at the time it wasn't. It was a completely different time back then.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the ways she was able to get away with it is because of who she was. It was like your grandmom talking about sex.
Yeah.
And, and people listened, and it wasn't offensive.
Right.
And people, she was able to go through the. Wasn't a censorship issue or anything like that.
Yeah, but in a time where women didn't really have any rights.
True.
You know, she was very outspoken about how she felt. She was blackballed a lot, too.
Really? I know.
Because of her openness at a time when America wasn't really ready to hear women talk about sexuality.
Yeah. I think she reached her peak when, like, 88, early 90s. That's when she kind of came mainstream.
Yeah.
Where she was able to get the recognition that she deserved.
Absolutely. And she's still writing books. I think she's
alive?
90, yes.
You think she's still doing it?
She says that's what's kept her alive.
Dick.
Yes.
Man, nobody.
Rock on.
Somebody probably breaking the life alert off of that mom.
She probably got her 40-something. If I was 90, I'd want somebody 40-something.
Probably knocking the life alert bracelet off of her. Okay. So perseverance has been part of your journey. Like that scene in Forrest Gump with a leaf, the feather was floating in different ways. You've been through so many different things. You went through stuff and you never really stopped moving. And I know that was some wise advice from your dad. Just keep it moving, keep it moving. Mm-hmm. Why do you think people who do similar things or why do you think people, what's a common thing that makes someone give up and stop pursuing their passion and stop pursuing their dream?
I think sometimes circumstances. I think sometimes people don't understand their own power. Mm-hmm. So if something happens that turns their world upside down, I think some of it is not having a strong support system. One, I think, two, they can't dig themselves out of that well. You know, I talk about the well of depression a lot simply because I know that there are periods where you can sink so deep that it's hard to dig yourself out of. Mm-hmm. If you don't have that support, it is going to be difficult. But I also think that's a time where you do some soul searching. Soul searching in the sense that you don't need anybody to make you happy. You have to start making yourself happy, figuring out where and what you want to do, where you want to go.
I think you need to repeat that for the ladies out there, because a lot of women in relationships rely on their partner to make them happy.
Yeah.
Instead of them trying to make themselves happy.
Absolutely.
I think, it's, I don't want to bring up Will Smith and Jada, but I think Will Smith said
he made the best statement ever.
He said, I can't make you happy. It's your responsibility to make yourself happy.
And when I remember him making that statement, I kept thinking about that, and I said, gosh, he already has it figured out. Think about the many people that don't, because it really is a big responsibility to place on someone. And if they've done everything that they possibly could do and you're still not happy, that's a brokenness within you. Somebody asked me if I was dating. And I was offended by that simply because I cannot open a new door until the old one is closed. So I feel like it would be unfair.
So why did that offend you? It seemed like a pretty simple question, an honest question.
Well, because I feel like if this person really knew me, they wouldn't ask that. And the reason I say that, I'm not a person that it probably takes a lot for me to connect with someone, but I still have this open door.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean I haven't thought about getting my jibbers janked, because I have thought about that.
Listen, but I want to stop you right there. All due respect. So you said were you offended that that person asked you and they should have known you, or okay,
that because if you know me, you know that I'm not going to just be out here dating like that until I've closed the door.
Because not everybody would know that whether or not your door of your past relationship is open or not. Like somebody randomly could ask and say, "Hey, are you?"
If it's somebody that doesn't know me like that, that's different.
Oh, it's the person.
This person knows me.
Got you. Yeah. Got you. Well, I ain't mean to ask you. Sorry.
No. But I get it though, and here's why I say I get it, because it is the norm now that when you break up with somebody, you're immediately looking for someone else. That's the norm.
Right.
So I think when I think about the question, I think they're so used to people doing that.
I don't think so, Jackie. I think it's more so with you. Because the very first question I asked you was the most common myth?
What's the
most common myth about you?
Yeah.
And you said you think people think that you're out here all wilding out.
Yeah, I think they think that. But
so based on that myth and the fact that you're confident, you're beautiful, you have a great personality, and you always keep it moving, why would they not assume that in a relationship?
So the person that asked me is a family member.
Okay.
And
I mean, you don't have to say names.
I'm not going to say names, but given the conversations that we've had over the years.
So it's okay.
Yeah.
So it's not the question, it's the person who asked
It's
the question.
right, because I feel like you know me.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to just be out there like that. And I think the person that I am, I've been in a relationship for a very, very long time.
Well, you said 2 varies, so that's 20 years.
28.
How much is a vary
And
worth?
some change.
Varies worth 14 years. One vary is 14. Var
Exactly.
Is 5 years.
So I feel like at this time in my life, I really just want to enjoy Jackie and all that she is. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that I'm closed to the idea of a relationship, but I'm going to say, because I've been in one for a very long time, I'm not really interested, and I still need to know, I still need to close the door.
Okay. Are you afraid to love again?
No.
Okay. So you're not afraid to love again. You're not afraid to love again. So it's just a matter of you want to do some self-maintenance.
Exactly.
Before you jump back on the saddle.
Yeah, I think, and I recommend that for everybody. You know, I feel like a lot of times people jump in and out of relationships, but they never take the time to get to know who they are and what they really want. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that that's very important.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
So who else helped you on your journey, other than your family?
So I don't have like a lot of friends, but the friends I have, I've known since childhood, like 7 or 8. You know what I mean?
I remember that show.
Yeah, and so those people are important to me in a sense that they know me from back here. And they know me up until now, and they are always encouraging,
Gotcha.
Always supportive. And even going through the things that I went through this past year, the one thing about me is that even a lot of times if I'm struggling, I won't really ask for help. I'll have to figure it out on my own.
Okay. So you were suffering in silence?
I won't say suffer in silence, but I think that I have to find another way to work it out.
Got you.
Yeah.
So you're resourceful and still getting the things you need or getting what you need, but you'll figure out you will not give up.
I'm not exactly, and I think it's also important to understand that, like, I come to a point where if it's something that I want and I don't have the money at the time to get it, then I don't need it right then. Yeah.
So what's fueling you now, today, 2020, post-COVID? We can't say post-COVID because we're still in this moment. But 2020, what's driving you? What makes you get up?
What makes me get up? I think everybody hears me talk about my granddaughter.
I knew it. I knew
it.
I was going to say, if I had to play the lottery, I was like,
that is, London. I love the relationship that her and I have.
She is special.
She's definitely, we talk about so many different things. And I also have a younger granddaughter now. But yeah, when I think about that, because I'm always thinking of what I show her. That's very important to me, what I show her, because I don't want her to grow up thinking that every time something happens that you just have to roll over and give up.
How old is she now, may I ask?
12.
12 years old. Very very impressionable age.
Exactly.
Right now.
Yeah. So it's important, the image that I show to her. And even my son, when people think about my son and I think they probably, I've heard a couple of people say, well, you all act more like brother and sister than mother and son. Well, I'm not going to say that because he knows the difference. Mm-hmm. It's just that we have an open line of communication.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's people. It's a misconception sometimes. It's always people relate in different ways, but
Yeah.
there's always respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the reason we have such a good dialogue is because I grew up in a household where your parents didn't really talk to you about a whole bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, I got to break this cycle. So I did. And it's not a whole lot that I would say. If whatever he asks me, I'm going to answer it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good or bad. That's
Good or bad. And then he'll look at me like, I wish I hadn't asked. So, yeah, that gets me going.
Yeah. So what do you see yourself in, I wouldn't even say a year, let's say 6 months. We're talking about New Year's Eve, a little bit New Year's Eve. Where's Jackie?
Where is Jackie? Depending on
emotionally,
covet.
No, I mean spiritually,
Yeah.
emotionally. Where's your mind going to be?
My mind is always going to be rebuilding Jackie. And even thinking in terms of leveling up, I have like a lot of great opportunities on the table.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of going through and figuring out what I'm going to do.
Okay. So you got a strategy.
I have a strategy. First and foremost, getting out my son's house. Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking in terms of, and I'm working on healing.
Perhaps? Closing the door, perhaps, or opening it back up. What are we going to do?
No, I think I'm going to close the door, because let's say, for argument's sake, later on down the line, I can't go back to the same relationship. However, if some things change, maybe I would think about it. But I just think that sometimes things have run its course.
Now that's first of all, it's courageous. It's not easy to do, and it is something that obviously you put a lot of thought in.
Yeah.
So do you see that as a crossroad? You see it as a milestone or a speed bump in your journey?
I've thought about this a lot lately. I think sometimes we have a hard time letting go because it's familiar.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sometimes even relationships define who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. But for me to be happy, I cannot have the same type of relationship.
Okay.
I've already started thinking in terms of moving forward, working on Jackie, but not so much the relationship side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So will this take you in a different path, or is this just something you just need to get over and keep moving?
Yeah, I think it's time to keep moving.
Keep moving.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and that was a subjective question. My apologies for that, but sometimes it depends on how you look at things.
Yeah.
If you look at something where you're unloading baggage or you stepping over a hurdle, the most important thing that I'm getting from you, and that's important to people in your life and you, is to keep moving.
Yeah, you have to keep
moving.
It's not, and I'm going to say this, it's definitely not easy starting over. You're definitely going to hit some bumps in the road, but my thing is, don't give up. I can bet on me all day long because I know what I'm capable of. So it's important for me to move forward because I like what I'm evolving into.
Okay.
And so I don't want to go backwards. I want to focus on rebuilding and doing the things that I want to do.
Okay.
Yeah, that's important.
So from a relationship standpoint, and I know this ain't easy to answer, what have you learned? What would you do differently?
So many
Just one thing.
different things. I think what I would do different, I think I would probably have to, in a lot of instances, I would probably have to take the ego out.
Your ego.
My ego, in terms of, I think sometimes you see stuff building, you address it, but you don't address it like you should. And I think there were times where I fell short. So if I thought about another relationship, I wouldn't make some of those same mistakes because I've learned.
So are you talking about the communication aspect, or is it the delivery, or just compromising on being heard?
Compromising
On being heard.
on being heard.
Isn't that contradicting?
It's not, in a sense where, okay, so I can talk about a situation and say that some things could have been handled different. And when I talked about ego, I'm more so talking in terms of, sometimes you think you have all the answers, even though in the back of your mind you know that you don't, especially for a particular situation, and you feel like we can work it out, but you know that we can't. And I think on some things I fell short.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I definitely fell short. And so that's why I say no one could ever begin to know everything that happens between the husband and wife.
Right.
You can speculate, yes. But I think at the end of the day, I think that, it's those two people. And with that being said, they don't need your 2 cents or his 2 cents. They have to come together and talk about some things. I think that doesn't always happen. It definitely, in the last couple of years, I saw things spiraling out of control. And as I mentioned, I was drowning. But in drowning, I'm still concerned about the other person.
Acts of service.
Yeah, as much as I hate to admit it, because I'm a fixer, and I think that I'm always saying I can fix it, I can fix it.
Right.
But some things you can't.
In these situations, have you ever felt in you, as much as you give, you want to fix, you want to compromise, you want to heal? Have you ever felt as though you lost your sense of self?
I think I lost a lot of myself in
this relationship we're talking about now.
Yeah, I think that because it was more, going back to what you said, serving. Yeah, I think I let a lot of things slide, one. And then I also think that in terms of the partnership, I felt like at some point, where do I begin?
Okay.
Yeah, because I think sometimes in a marriage or a long-time relationship of any kind that you lose a part of yourself. And I think in the last couple of years, I probably pursued the things that I wanted to do more so, and because I'm not getting any younger. But I think that sometimes that in doing that, I dropped the ball.
In this relationship right now that we're speaking about, do you see any similarities with your mom?
Yeah, my mom gave up a lot to raise 4 children.
But it sounds like you did too.
Yeah. She gave up a lot. I think about that a lot. And at this age, I'm not willing to give up anything.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I feel like I've given so much. I want support, but I'm okay if I don't because I have to rely on Jackie. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm responsible for my happiness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go. How are we on time?
I'm good.
Okay. So what's next for you? When do you think how long do you think how long is this process of closing the door?
I don't know because I still love him. But I'm beginning to realize that we are just not, it's not going to work. And I think that's another thing. People can break up, but you don't have to be bitter. You can still maintain some kind of relationship. But I think for me to continue to be the person that I'm evolving into, I have to focus on me. And so I'm not really in a rush to actually close the door, even though I know that day will come. I'm more so focusing on my journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about some of those. Are you at liberty to talk about some of the things that you got in?
I can. So I have probably about 8 different publications that I'm working on currently. I actually have a friend that's moving from Los Angeles to New York with her own show, so I will periodically be making a guest appearance on there. So I'm excited about that because if I'm not mistaken, her show is going to be on NBC.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So again, that's one of the people that I met while in Los Angeles, and
so your network is still strong.
It's still strong. I'm so
reaping.
excited about that. I want to visit my friend Joy and help her out with her organization. She has a school for underprivileged children, and I'd like to go visit and volunteer there for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to give of my time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Anything going on locally?
I don't have anything going on locally as of yet. I tell you, though, I think it's hard here sometimes.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not using that to not do something. I'm working on a film festival for next year.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's pretty exciting, and the Thompson boys will be involved in that along with Bryant. So yeah, I'm working on that. This year we weren't able to do the Baltimore Black Wall Street, so we're working on that for 2021. But for myself, I want to start honoring women business owners.
Okay.
Yeah.
Separate
from...
All both of them? Okay. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying.
Tell
Nick,
me more about that. Where
was your sound effects? Nick said that shit went over my damn head.
No, seriously, women, black women businesses.
Well, not just specifically to black women, but women business owners. Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of them because
it's a lot.
My daughter's one of them.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
In
LA,
yeah, it's I think that's awesome. I mean, I jest about it, but and it's a much needed niche. So do you have people that you ran into that we can talk about, or
Well,
I can support?
I don't want to jump the gun, but
okay.
If I'm thinking in terms of, first of all, I think we all need financial expertise. So if I have to just shout out a very strong financial businesswoman, I'd have to say Donna Stevenson.
Donna Stevenson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Donna is amazing, and I have a lot of admiration for her. I remember when they were on the show, and to hear about their humble beginnings and where they are now just blows my mind. Yeah. So, but there's a lot, and I think they definitely deserve the recognition. But this would be something that I would be doing, and that definitely doesn't have anything to do with the Black Wall Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I mean, and it is something that is much needed, and I hopefully that can grow, and you bring some visibility to women entrepreneurs, especially locally here.
Yeah, absolutely, because there are so many, and in this new journey, I'm focusing more so on spreading love, healing. And I think I've done that all along, but more so I want us to be more supportive of one another. One thing I've learned during this time, if you haven't already started a business, it's still a good time to do it. There's so many things out here, but you just have to focus on, figure out what it is you're passionate about and do your research on it and start to build. There are a lot of programs out here that I didn't even know about, and it just comes down to doing research. But I want not just the community to grow, but us as individuals. I think that we need to start focusing on our own growth and not allowing that growth to be dependent on someone else's success, but what you bring to the table will add. You know what I mean? That's kind of like my thing right now. Focus on building you.
So where do you think we're going to be next year? We think we're going to be out of this thing?
If we are still dealing with Lysol Man, I'm going to say no, but it brings me to an interesting point when I start thinking about voting, because I think this is very important, people. If you're registered to vote, exercise your right to do research. Don't just vote for somebody because you're registered with that party.
True.
Research, because we have all these tools at our fingertips, and it's important.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. Also, just to piggyback on that, my personal view on that. Well, matter of fact, this weekend I was at the barbershop, and out in Howard County, a Howard County executive goes to our barbershop, so I see him all the time. And we I don't want to talk politics with him because that's what he does all the time.
Right.
He's a real cool guy. Plus, he's alumnus of Towson State as well. And first black Howard County, executive. So we talking, and he said something that resonated to me. I've been thinking about it all week. And in the barbershop, we always talk, but we started getting on politics, and usually, he don't say too much, but he says his thing, and he said this. He said, conservatives fall in line.
Wow.
Liberals have to fall in love to support.
That's interesting.
He said Trump may have a 45% approval rating, but the conservatives will be like, yeah, but I agree with that 45. 45% is enough. Liberals, he'll have a 90% approval rating, but they're looking at that 10% that they don't agree with.
Yeah.
And then on piggyback on that, somebody was actually did a testimony and said, well, I know somebody who didn't stop supporting Obama because of one policy.
Yeah.
One policy they didn't agree with. one policy, like,
Yeah.
and they stop supporting it, or you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Whereas,
he was held to a different.
But that's how liberals kind of
Yeah.
be, So again, conservatives fall in line, because even this guy, the only black senator, talked about today, and here where they talked about. I think during the debate, you might have heard Donald Trump had an opportunity to denounce white supremacy, white supremacist group, and he didn't do it.
Yeah.
He told him to stand by and stand down and stand by. This guy, the only few Republicans are speaking or saying anything about it, denouncing him or anything. That this one said, I think he misspoke.
Wow.
So, again, they fall in line no matter what. But But we criticize minute policies that's and they won't support the agenda.
Yeah.
So when you say do your research, of course, do your research, be educated. I think you've always talked about. I mean, we had candidates on here. We had politicians on here, and we got some knowledge from them, especially during this time. Yeah. Which is always good, and that's one of the beauties I like about this show is the fact that it's such a diverse set of people. I think one of my favorites was the comedians. Yeah. They had. Yeah. I mean, we were cracking up the whole time. I think we went over. But the comedians, I forgot his name, who did the Fred Sanford.
Ricky.
Yeah.
And Howard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Big Mama.
Yep.
Big Mama is phenomenal. And
they're some of my favorites as well.
She's being booked a lot now that things are opening back up. But even just a general conversation with her, she have you cracking up.
Yeah, some people had that energy.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I was thinking about you as well. I was like, I said, Jackie can never walk into a room and not command attention. This tiny little woman, she would walk somewhere. You would walk down the street and somebody gonna notice your ass.
It's so funny because I remember we went to a party a few months ago. It was an 80s party, and my brother and I got out the truck, and women were walking down the street, and they say, "Oh my God, you look so cute," and he gonna say, "Why she act like she ain't see me?"
Yep.
He said, "That's why I hate going somewhere with you."
You about 3 feet high and you command attention. It's like I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, Jackie can never go somewhere and not be. You don't even have to say anything. It's like everybody gonna turn. It's like, yeah, I remember this is a little light skinned woman that was in the party.
And I talked to everybody. I remember being in the grocery store with my sister. And I'm talking to this lady, and it did probably seem to her that we knew each other. She said, that woman I never saw before a day in my life. She said, well, why she following you from hour to hour? I said, because we had good conversation.
Yeah. And that's a gift, Yeah. And I think, as much as you're going on in your life, as much as things, adversity through it all, I appreciate you continuing to persevere and to press on, being an example for people. Because, again, I always say you never know who you inspire.
It's true.
And you do have an act of bringing out the best in people. I joke around saying that good luck saying good.
I know, and I think that's
good luck
the
saying no
thing.
to you. But, I mean, do I really want to? No, I don't.
Right,
because even though I may not see the vision, we trust that.
Yeah.
So it's like whatever you do through, to get yourself up and to be that light, God bless you for doing that.
Yeah, I appreciate you for saying that. I have to tell y'all something about Quiet Storm.
Oh, don't tell. This ain't about me.
He is
we got time.
such an amazing friend. And
I think we're running out of time.
And
here.
I tell people, I said, oh yeah, and his wife is a hell of a bodyguard.
Yeah.
But I mean, he really is a good friend, and I can call and say, look, you got a few minutes because I got something on my mind. He's a great listener, and I just appreciate you so much. There's a whole lot of people. I don't have time to name everybody, but even when I think about Lonnie told me something about a month ago. He said he would never have pursued his dreams if it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of statement is powerful because I want everybody to win.
Mm-hmm. And I think we're similar in that way because I'm a type of person. I mean, I think people paths cross for different reasons. Mm-hmm. And everywhere along the way, I try in my own quiet way. I'm not a rah-rah. I'm naturally shy, believe it or not. But I try to influence or do good things.
You do.
And my goal is to, let's say we lose touch, and down the road, somebody mentioned my name, and if somebody mentioned my name and you smile and say, you know what, he was all right.
Yeah.
He is all right.
He is all right.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. And he doesn't talk about what he has going on, but
who's that?
You.
Oh.
He has a band, Tropical Soul. Y'all are accepting bookings now that things are opening back up,
yeah, we're
right?
playing this weekend.
Okay, so give them your contact information because
Tropical
they really are good. Bless you.
Tropical Soul. Jazz project.
And they're
Peace,
good.
love,
They're a great band. Even
we have a lot of fun. It's all about following your passion. Mm-hmm. It's all about creating memories. And I played at this for some Deltas this weekend.
Okay.
I love y'all. I was the only man there, and I loved it.
Yes. Listen to him.
But just to hear at one point. It was a couple of local celebrities there too.
Okay.
And at one point, I just heard the fellowship that they had and the bond that they had was a really great thing.
Yeah.
And I was there to help create some memories for their little event. So that's what it's all about. It's all about creating memories, and you never know who you influence, who you inspire.
That is so
and I
true.
I say that to you.
Yeah.
Just keep on keeping on. You never know who you inspire from 8 to 80.
And I gotta give a shout out to Nick as well
Saint
because Saint Nick. I'm so grateful to be here. At this station, and Nick is phenomenal DJ, station owner. Every time we come in here, he's doing something different.
Always upgrading. We were talking about that earlier today. I said, man, you always leveling it up. Always. He's never stay quiet.
And I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
You have to invest in your dream. I think a lot of times people don't understand that anything that you want to do, you have to make an investment of some kind. And if you're not willing to do that, then maybe you don't believe enough in that dream or enough in you.
Well, sometimes it's about overcoming the fear.
Yeah.
Because I know everybody wants to, or to some degree. But again, what separates people from stepping out on faith is their fear and their situation. So we still want to encourage you. At the same time, if in any way you can, you always want to level up and get better, whether it's financially, spiritually, personally. You always want to be better than you were yesterday, in a better place. Yeah.
And it's okay, to fail, because failure is always a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
I failed many times, but I learned each time. And I think that's important. Don't look at it like it's, I failed, it's the end of the world. No, you learn from it so that you don't make the same mistake twice. And with everything, it's trial and error. Life is full of so many amazing opportunities and lessons learned. Yeah. You did a great job, which I knew you would. I remember us having that conversation, and I know you were hesitant, but it went well. You did a great job.
Well, I mean,
I'm proud of you.
You made it easy. The thing, you made it. I mean, you're so dynamic and interesting. So many stories to tell, and that's the thing about it is, I mean, we could do multiple shows on this. Just about your life and your journey.
Yeah.
But again, I think I'm glad you were brave enough to give us the opportunity to see Jackie unplugged.
And I tried to get as naked as I possibly could.
We're going to call the show Jackie Unplugged and Intimate. But it's not easy. It's not easy being vulnerable and speaking about some of the things. Because you had a lot going on.
I did.
Some success, some challenges, but it's all good because it's all about growth.
It's all about growth, and I think that is always important.
Yeah.
Life isn't perfect, but you grow from your experiences.
Yeah. We're a work in progress, and I appreciate
always.
you. I appreciate you trusting me with the keys to the Bentley. I'm gonna hand it back over to you, and stay in my lane.
Well, I hope you have enjoyed tonight's show. I made a commitment over the last couple of months that, because I love hearing other people's story, but I made a commitment to share more about myself, because sometimes I don't, because I get caught up in listening to other people's story. But we all started from somewhere.
Make your mess your message.
Exactly.
Right? Make your mess your message.
Exactly. Because if one person can benefit from it, then I've done my job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I look at it. Yeah. So I thank each and every one of you for tuning in.
Thank you, folks. It's the pleasure. It's been my pleasantly plump pleasure as well as my privilege. It's all good. Thanks for joining us. And thank you again, Jackie. Thank you for being open and honest, and giving us an opportunity to see the real you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And you, again, were amazing. So I'm going to say good night, folks.
Good night, y'all.
We'll
Sleep
see you
tight.
next go round.
We're going to get behind my eyelids.
My granddaughter had texted me talking about, she called FaceTime like she forgot. That's why she was like, where you at? I'm like, show. She said, oh, I forgot.